The BMS 300 amp battery scam by Edward A. Pritchard Jr. My wire diagram circuit without the fuses and the circuit breakers and the switches. The battery, the 24-volt battery, and the supposedly BMS, the bus bars, and the shunt. The new pristine lithium LifePo4 batteries. I bought 8 of them. Model LISHEN 3.2 volts, 302 amp hours. My bus bar with the inverters and the AC distribution panel, 200 amp, 24 volt DC, 24 volts DC in, 220 volts AC out, with 6,000 watt inverter with the 18,000 watt peak for about 20 seconds. Just 3 times the amount. That's the IHDC 6000 model. And there's the output rating, 24 volts. You take 6,000 watts divided by 24, you come out with 250 continuous watts. It's the panel description for the DC side. And there's the panel description for the AC side, where you have your AC inputs if you hook it up to a camper cable, and you have an AC output going into the distribution box, and you got the MPP solar charger with the solar panels and the hookups, and I got a 24 volt DC to 24 volt DC to 12 volt DC step down inverter, 85 amps. And then I got a 2-way fuse box, so the right side could be 12 volts DC, 100 amps, and the left side can be 24 volts DC, 100 amps coming straight off the bus bar. The 12 volt DC side will only get 85 amps because that's what the size of the inverter is. Then one AWG copper wire rated at 110 amps. I ordered this bus bar, this BMS, supposed to be 8S for 8 cells with 300 amps rating with an LCD, so I know what's going on. Through AliExpress. Well, I ordered it through Alibaba. And then you can see that they have 40, an 80, a 300, and a 400. It says it's used for BMS 8S 300 amp protection board used for 24 volts car startup and solar energy storage. And this is when we contacted them. I just ordered an 8 unit 3.2 volts 100, I put 110, it's 102 batteries to make a 24 volt system. So I need a BMS for it to maintain the proper voltage to run 6,000 watt inverter with a peak 12,000. It's actually 18,000. Does this come with the main wires for the 300 amp to hook up to the batteries, or just the wires for monitoring the battery itself? I would like the bigger wires attached to it. Will it come with the instructions that I can read? Can the wires handle 300 amps? Thank you. Please wait. Hi dear, there is no manual for this product at present. How will I know how to use it or how to set it up? I would like to buy it, but need to make sure it can handle the 300 amps going through it. Your goods have arrived today. I already delivered the goods to your logistic number. I opened the package up, and everything looked good except there were 4 each 12 amp or 12 AWG wires on each side that are rated at 20 amps each. Equals 100 or equals 80 amps, not the 300 amps that I ordered. Why? This is a 300 amp. I checked, but yes, it is, but the wires will not carry that many amps. So I'm believing that they sent me the right one, and that's because the sticker on the back says it's rated at 300 amps. And there's a closer view of the sticker. Oops. But when we look at the wires, there are 12 AWG. There's 4 of them, 4 black wires on the one side, and 4 12 AWG wires on the blue side. Now if we look at the 12 AWG 20, it's only rated at 20 amps. Now for this to work, you would need 4 AWG 85 amps, because that would give you 340 volts or 340 amps. Because the 4 65s only give you 260 amps. So we look over here, if we look at the combined wire gauge calculator, it says 4 12 gauge wire, or 4 wires 12 gauge equals effective gauge of 6 gauge. A 6 gauge wire is only equal to 55 amps. So I went on to Google. Is it okay to use a number 12 wire gauge to a 30 amp breaker? And we go down to the guy that answered it. Whoops. Absolutely not. If the wire circuit is overloaded, the 12 gauge wire will essentially be turned into a direct heater, eventually burning in half. Well, if you burn the wire in half, the shielding will obviously melt and everything combustible near the wire will catch fire from the glowing red wires. Eventually the wire will burn in half and the burnt wires will stop overheating by breaking open the circuit. All this happens because more than 20 amps were pulled over the circuit, but less than 30 amps. Hence, the 30 amp breaker never faults turning off the circuit breaker. Learn and remember, breakers and fuses are not in place to save the appliance. They are there to protect the wires to the appliance. Imagine if you used any wire on just any size breaker, all the wires would burn in half. Now, if your house didn't burn down for some reason, how are you going to get into the walls and replace all the wiring? Hence, you need the proper size wire to properly size the breakers. A 30 amp circuit breaker uses a 10 gauge wire. The wire can handle the pull of 30 amps without getting hot and burning in half, thus not burning down your house. Hope this helps. Good day. There are 4 each 12 AWG wires on each side that you sent me. Each 12 AWG wire is only rated at 20 amps each. 4 times 20 equals 80. So the 4 wires are only rated at 80 amps total. This is supposed to be able to handle 300 amps. The controller might be rated at 300 amps, but the wires that came with it are not. I will confirm it, dear. Did the engineer get back with you yet? No, maybe they were busy and didn't see my information. Do I need to send it back to get the right wires on it? Let me urge the engineers. Hi dear, our product can process 300 amp currents, but it cannot be used continuously. It continuously working current is 120 amps. Why would you tell me it would be able to work at 300 amps then? How do I send this one back and get the 300 one that I was supposed to get? Or 2,880 watts divided by 24 volts is 120 amps. So that means it's only supposed to be able to handle a 2,500 watt inverter, not the 6,000 watt inverter that I got. But this is what I ordered, and I don't see 120 amp continuous BMS listed on this page. How do I send this one back and get the 300 one that I was supposed to get? This can't process this 300 amps. I need it continuous like I told you at the beginning and not 120 amp. Need the 300 one to run continuously. As I told you at the beginning, it can handle the 300 amp current but cannot work continually. At present, we do not produce that with thick wires that continue to work. So how do I send this back to you? I will give you this address and I will refund it after receiving the goods. She gave me the address. Now this is what I have. I have a 24 volt DC at 100 amps. Actually, it's 85 amps. 24 volt DC at 100 amps. Oops, sorry. 110 volts at 200 amps, which equals a 400 amp max. That is why I need one that has 300 amps continuously and not 120. The wires will not handle all the current. So do I need to send the package back to you and you send me the ones that can handle the amps that I asked for? At present, we do not have products with thick wires that will continue to work. So how do I send it back to you? That you gave me the address. Now this is the transaction. The supplier needs to accept your dispute proposal before you send the item back to them. On this case, I suggest you contact them and ask them to respond on your dispute, so you will be able to return the item back to the supplier. Will they send me the info to send it back to them? No worries with that. They need to give you a return address where you can. They gave me the return address. Now after she tried to scam me, she's asking for $50 tip. And I didn't know what a customer declaration was. I will give you the address and I will refund you after receiving the goods. Do I just drop it off at FedEx? Do you have a return slip that I can print out for FedEx? No. When I went to FedEx, they told me that Alibaba gives them to people that have to send a package back. Okay, so what do I need to provide? We do not deliver goods through Alibaba. We use offline logistics. Do they get a discount for shipping a lot of packages? Alibaba.com logistics. This is the page that you sent me to, so that is a part of Alibaba. This is what the transaction said to me. The supplier needs to accept your dispute before you send the item back to them. So she don't even know that logistics is part of Alibaba, and she's supposed to be the sales representative. And I went through the trade assurance agreement. And she told me that because this product, the seller did not promise it could run continually before shipping. The product can't even run at 300 amps. The 420s is 80. But like the guy said in the one thing, if it's 30 amps, it'll melt and blow up. So they're saying it's 120 amp continuous. But as I showed you, the 20 amps at 30 amps, or 30 amps going through a 20 amp wire, will take and burn and melt. Is that so? I am not going to pay to ship a product back. That was not what I was supposed to get. If you want the product back, then you send me the return slip info to get it back to you. Why should I pay to ship a product back when it is false advertising by your company? The website shouldn't say 300 amps or 400 amps if it is not. She puts okay. So in other words, she's trying to scam me out of the $159 that I paid for this product, counting the shipping. She wanted a $50 tip. And And they don't care if your house burns down because the wires are too small. Because if we look at this, each wire, 20 amp AWG wires coming in and going out. It's supposed to be able to handle 300 amps. And we already know that if we put 120 amps, like they're telling me it is, through this thing, that it's going to melt the wires, catch your house on fire, your cabin, your boat, your yacht, your trailer, or your motor home. It does. They do not handle 420 amp wires. Do not handle that many amps. I'm trying to get. Now, if we look up here on the distribution panel, this is what's normally in a house, and you have 12 amp. Or 12 AWG wires and 6 AWG wires coming out of your circuit breakers on your house, depending on which circuit breakers are rated at. So if you got 6 12 gauge wires coming out, how is the world's 4 AWG wires going to handle all 6 of those? It can't be done. If you got the 12 wires or 12 AWG wires and 10 AWG wires coming out your 12 volts DC side, or 12 AWG, 10 AWG wires coming out your 24 volt side, how is 4 12 AWG wires going to handle it? You take and go down and look at your house distribution box coming in. The wires going in are going to be rated at 100 to 200 amps, depending on your distribution box down in your basement or your house, or in your utility room. And you're going to have 100 amps or 200 amps on each wire coming in. You got 220, you got 2 hot wires and a ground wire coming in. And sometimes you have a neutral coming in also. Sometimes the ground and the neutrals combine, but normally they're different. So you have 4 wires coming in. But there's no way that 4 28 or 4 12 AWG wires is going to handle the load coming through this thing. They're false, and they shouldn't be able to take and advertise that and steal your money. They shouldn't even send that stuff to you. It's false advertisement, and I'm just hoping that your house don't burn down, your yacht don't burn down, your motor home don't burn down because you ordered a BMS from these people. I hope you have a great day. Take care, and may God bless you. Goodbye.